Okay, so I don't really know how to tell you this, but the second aspect is how minorities view everyone else, or the non-normal people view the normal people. And there's something you should understand. The vast majority of minorities do not actually view the other minority group as evil. There's this other subject, and I'm going to get to it, but that's not the aspect we want to look at. They assume the, the aspect that we're looking at is where the normal people are viewed as kind of scary. And there's a good reason why. The minorities have long histories of armies and large groups trying to punish these non-normal people for not being normal, for not doing something correctly, or for whatever reasons. And this can be all sorts of aspects that you haven't even thought about. In the same way that that highlight reel is going to show the home team, remember, when you're not normal, that means you're very likely not going to be the home team either. And there's a long history of, you start to wonder about some of the things that the journalists are talking about. I'll give you an example. In the Katrina disaster articles, we found out that there was all this racism going on and all this other stuff going on. And then I talked to my friends who were in New Orleans during the time of Katrina, and they said that no, much of the racism they heard about didn't happen, or it didn't happen in the way that people were describing it on the news. And so you have to start asking, well, why were the journalists talking this way? And the reality was the journalists wanted to talk about racism in Louisiana, which is a real thing. And they were trying to use this other subject to kind of segue into it. In the same way, you can see that Mitt Romney once ran for president. This was not the most recent one, and he happened to be Mormon, and he didn't even get through the primaries. But shortly after that, a group in Texas, which was, I don't know what to call them, they claimed to be Mormon, but they weren't, and they were all arrested and rounded up, and the police were trying to deal with the whole subject. And what the journalists were talking about were, they were saying, well, we're not really talking about Mormonism. We're not really talking about Mormonism. We're just talking about multiple wives. But the reality was they were being arrested for, having a 60-year-old man with a 14-year-old daughter, or 14-year-old wife. 14-year-old daughter is okay. 14-year-old pregnant wife, not okay. And we were complaining that he had 3 wives. I don't think the 3 wives really mattered in the subject. And so, the abuse and the ideas of rape were actually what was being brought up. So why did the journalists want to talk about, this multiple marriage thing? And the way the Mormons viewed it was that they were trying to punish Mitt Romney, or they were trying to get rid of Mitt Romney, so they were saying all this stuff, but not saying it out loud. And once you realize that, this fear of punishment happens, you start to see how Mitt Romney responded the next election. He honestly tried to be as normal as he possibly could, and he had this weird look in his face where he would just look at the crowd, and you could just sort of see him scanning everyone, looking for snipers. Or not snipers, but people that might want to kill him. And that's something you have to understand, that it really is the major subject, is that every minority doesn't really hate each other, but they assume that the majority, that the people in charge, will try to punish them, will try to kill them, will send the army after them, will make these horrible things happen. And if you don't look at it that way, if you don't realize that every minority group is assuming that any government regulation will be used against them, period, you don't understand why they're so passionate, why they're kind of acting so leery, or kind of acting so scared. So, when you're not the home team and you're the opposing team and you're not the normal person, how do you respond? Well, the one way is to act as much in that culture as you can so that you can be protected by your culture. So, you go into Utah and you see these signs that say "Forever Families" and "Oh, prepare your son for his mission." And then you see another billboard and it's the exact opposite. And it'll be like, "Come to our wine tasting and beer tasting festival. Hard rock shown to everyone." And by the way, hard rock is okay within the church. It's just, we're looking at it in a social aspect here. And you start to go, well, why are all these billboards looking so different from each other? And the reality is, uh, the other way to not be punished is to try to go to the other extreme, to not be within the non-normal culture, to try to be as normal as you possibly can think of. And Mormons are hilarious at this because they fail at it so badly. It's true, but you know, when you have no idea what this normal thing really is, and you see it on TV and stuff, and so you try to just do that, and that's not quite it, and it really does make you nervous. And so that's the other aspect of Mitt Romney was you saw him just go, okay, this is as normal as I can do. I'm trying to be as normal as I can. And that was really held against him by a lot of groups. And that's what was actually happening. Within any group, you talk about Mormons, you talk about Hispanics, you talk about, black people, you talk about Native Americans. It all happens the same way, where they're trying to be normal and try to be in their culture, and how do they do it? And sometimes it's really hard, and you know that if you're in that group, you might be punished for being in that group, even if you didn't do anything wrong. And in fact, you view yourself as normal. And that's the aspect you have to realize. That's how you have to view it, is the assumption that not the other minority, but that the government is trying to kill you, is trying to punish you. Oh man. Just so that you know, just an aside, this has been the take that has taken the most amount of time. I've taken about 20 shots of this same subject over and over again, just because it's such a passionate subject. Okay.